the sun had left and the winter came and the sky fall to only bring the rain, I sat in darkness, all broken hearted. I couldn't find a day, I didn't feel alone. I never meant to cry, I started losing hope. Somehow, Jesus, you broke through and saved me. You're my savior, tell me you're never leaving. 'Cause you're the first thing I know I can believe in. You are holy, 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 holy. I'm high on loving you, high on loving you. You're holy, 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 holy. I'm high on loving you, high on loving you. You made the brightest days from the darkest nights. You're the riverbank where I was baptized, cleansed from the demons that were killing my freedom. Gave me all your light, gave me all of you, got me screaming, hallelujah. We'll be touching heaven. You're my savior, said you're never leaving. 'Cause you're the first thing I know I can believe in. You're holy, 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 holy. I'm high on loving you, high on loving you. You're holy, 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 holy. I'm high on loving you, high on loving you. I don't need these stars 'cause you shine for me. Like fire in my veins, you're my ecstasy. You're my ecstasy. You're holy, 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 holy. I'm high on loving you, high on loving you. Holy, 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 holy. I'm high on loving you, high on loving you. You're holy, holy, holy. I'm
Hey, good afternoon or good evening to everyone. We want to welcome you to the 6 p.m. Broadcast. And so we're going to chime in with Minister Kiri Hartness. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are
You're
you?
good. You're good. Okay. Okay. So listen, I ain't going to take too much of y'all's time up. Of course, this afternoon at our 12 noon Bible study, we did have a few glitches, a few technical difficulties. So bear with us. There are a lot of things streaming through the airwaves and a lot of people that are streaming at the same time, from my understanding. And so what we will do is make sure that we give it a dry run next Wednesday. So if you see something that says testing, pay it no mind. All right, we'll just be testing the streaming sites, etc., and making sure that we'll still have the capability to be able to stream through Facebook and YouTube at the same time without having all of the technical difficulty. But I'm asking each of you if you would definitely hit your share button if you can and if you will. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to get out of the way and let her come in her own way, but she is going to be ministering this evening. I can assure you, you're going to be blessed. You're in for a treat. And for those that do not know much about her, she is an author. All right. And she could probably tell you more about the book. And so, but her book is called And He Said to Pray. All right. And He Said to Pray. And I don't know if she has a book nearby that she could actually show you the cover of it so that you could put your order in and purchase. But I do have a copy myself. as well. I've had a copy for probably a couple of years now. I guess I've had a copy for a few years now. And so she is a mentor for young ladies, as well as middle-aged ladies as well. She is a great mentor. She is an intercessor. All right. She is a pulpit attendant, and she has a heart and a yearning for God. That is for certain. These are things that I just know about her and all I can tell you. But, the rest is history. So, I'm going to get out of the way, let her come in her own way as the Lord would see fit. So let me decrease so that the Lord can increase in and through her.
Okay. Good evening to everyone. And thank you, Pastor West. I know I said thank you before, but I just wanted to publicly just say thank you for this chance and this opportunity to bring the word tonight through our Bible study. I will be coming out of 1 Samuel, and my topic tonight is the rewards of persistent prayer. This is the story in 1 Samuel of Hannah, and it's actually one of my most favorite stories in the Bible. Even though it is a short story, it's a powerful story. I first want to kind of give you just a few highlights in regards to Hannah, some of the things about Hannah. Hannah, first of all, she was faithful to God. She was the wife to Elkanah, who also had a wife by the name of Peninnah. Hannah was barren. Hannah was tormented. She was provoked, and she was of old age. And even though she was of old age, she still she vowed to God that if he would give her a son, that she would give back to him. And also Hannah was favored. Her name alone meant favor, and it also meant grace. I'm going to just read, and I will not be reading. I'll read kind of I won't read verbatim. Just kind of reading a little bit in chapter 1 in regards to Hannah. Again, she is one of two wives to Elkanah. She is barren. Elkanah's other wife, Peninnah, was able to have children. Hannah, again, could not have any. At verse 3, I'm going to start out that they would annually, Peninnah, Hannah, and Elkanah would annually go up to the city of Shiloh to worship and to sacrifice and to offer sacrifices to the Lord. And there the two sons of Eli, Hopham and Phinehas, were priests to the Lord. When the day came that Elkanah sacrificed, he gave portions to Peninnah, his wife, and to her sons and to her daughters. But to Hannah, he gave a double portion because he loved her. But the Lord had closed her womb. And I just mentioned that Hannah was favored. And we see the favor of Hannah again, where we see that her husband, Elkanah, he gave her a double portion. I'm going to go ahead and read on. It says, Now her rival provoked her greatly, which was Peninnah, making her miserable because the Lord had closed her womb. Thus it was yearly when she went up to the house of the Lord that she was provoked. So Hannah was provoked yearly when they would go up to Shiloh to worship in the worship center. She was provoked greatly by Peninnah. She had wept and she did not eat. And her husband Elkanah said to her, Hannah, why are you weeping and why do you not eat? Why is your heart grieved? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? So here we see what I want to say is the position that we find Hannah in. Hannah, again, is barren. She's provoked. she's miserable. And although this story is about Hannah, the question I want to throw out is, what position do you find yourself in? We see that Hannah is in the position of wanting to have a child, wanting to have a son, but she's barren. Again, she's tormented, she's provoked. So what, if I might ask, is the position that you right now may find yourself in? When we go on down and reread verses 9, it goes on to say, so Hannah rose after they had eaten. Again, they're in Shiloh. And after they had eaten and drunk. Now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat of the door of the tabernacle of the Lord. And she was bitter, meaning Hannah. Hannah was bitter. And she prayed to the Lord and she wept severely. And she made a vow to the Lord that if the Lord would look upon her afflictions of her maid servant and remember her, that she would give her son back to the Lord. And as she was praying before the Lord, Eli watched her mouth. Eli was the priest. Now Hannah was speaking in her heart. Her lips was moving, but her voice was not heard. And I mentioned again that I mentioned previously that Hannah was faithful to God. And again, yearly they would go to Shiloh. So yearly Hannah would go and she would be provoked and she would be tormented by Peninnah. But you don't read anywhere where Peninnah fought back or Peninnah had a fit and she just threw in the towel. Peninnah just prayed. She prayed unto the Lord. And excuse me for a moment. And I got to thinking about the first verse in 1 Samuel, the first verse where they mentioned the family dynamics of Elkanah, who is, again, Hannah's husband. But you do not read where they say anything about Hannah's family or Hannah's mother or Hannah's father. And I began to wonder if Hannah was like my mom. My mom pushed prayer. It would be interesting if we would have known the dynamics in regards to Hannah's family. Because again, Hannah, she prayed and she poured out her heart unto the Lord. She did not retaliate against Peninnah, but she consistently prayed. So again, we see the position that Hannah is in. Hannah is barren. She's provoked and she's tormented. But her response out of this all was she was persistent in prayer. And I know that there are some of us that may be going through things in life right now, and we're praying and we're asking God. We're asking God for things, and we want to know, God, when does God hear me? And is God ever going to answer? Is God ever going to move on my behalf? And when are things going to change? And when are things going to happen for me? And there are those that are praying for things that are impossible. Hannah was of old age. I read that it said that she was around the age of 70. So at the age of 70, Hannah is still praying and asking God for a son, and which demonstrates her faith in God. And how many of us are praying for things that seem impossible? Hannah is well of old age. She's no spring chicken, but still she is praying and asking God for a son. There was, in 1958, there was a group, the RMS Singers, the Robert Martin Singers, and they had a hit song out by Savoy Records. And The song was, and it featured the lead artist was Gloria Griffin. In that song, Gloria Griffin, she sung God Specializes, and that's a familiar song. And it talks about, have you have any uncrossable things that are uncrossable? It said, God specializes. Let me just read it. God specializes. Have you have any rivers or that seem uncrossable? And have you any mountains that you cannot tunnel through? God specializes in things thought impossible, and he can do what no other power can do. Now that's the song speaking of God specializing in the impossible. But there's also scripture found in Isaiah 43:19, where God is referencing God making a way in the desert and in the streams and in the wasteland. Again, demonstrating God has the ability to do the impossible. We further go on where we see that Hannah, again, she's pouring out her heart. She's pouring out her heart in front of Eli. Eli thought that Hannah was drunk, but she was not drunk. She was bitter, and she was sore, and she was sad. And she had this conversation with Eli discussing this. And Eli goes on to tell her later on in the chapter that, go ahead, that your request to the Lord is going to be granted. So again, we see the position. Hannah is tormented. She's bitter. She's barren. And with all Hannah, all that Hannah was going through, she could have given up. She could have thrown in the towel, but instead Hannah was persistent in prayer. So her position was barren, but her posture was that she was persistent in prayer. She did not give up. She stayed persistent in prayer. And again, Eli told her to go ahead, after she poured out her heart and they thought she was drunk. He told her, just go ahead. Your request is going to be granted. And I mentioned that Hannah was favored. In the second, I'm sorry. In verse 18, we see, and I'm going to turn to it real quickly. Again, I'm sorry. In verse 17, I'm going to read it. It says, then Eli answered and said, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant you your request that you have asked of him. And she said, let your handmaid find grace in your sight. So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was not sad before. They rose up early in the morning and worshiped before the Lord. And they returned and came to their house to Ramah. And Elkanah knew his wife, and the Lord remembered her. And it came to pass that Hannah conceived and bore a son. And she called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked of the Lord. So I want to go back real quickly. And again, the position, she's barren. She's tormented. She's been tormented and barren for years upon years. She's of old age, but she still wants a son. And not only that, she is persistent in her prayer. She still asks God, even in her old age, she's still asking God to give her this son. So the position and her being persistent in prayer, but the payoff to her persistence in prayer was that God remembered her and he gave her a son. And he didn't give her just any son. God blessed Hannah with Samuel, who was not only a priest, but he was a prophet. In the second chapter, verse 21, we go on to read that God not only blesses Hannah with Samuel, but he goes on ahead and blesses Hannah with 5 more children. 5 in biblical meaning is grace. So God not only favored Hannah, but God, he graced her in her old age, past her childbearing years, to have 5 more children. That's grace, to be of that age and to have that many children. And that was the reward of her persistent prayer. Now, I know that this is out of the Old Testament, but even though it's out of the Old Testament, it carries over into the New Testament in regards to what I consider persistence in prayer. Because in Luke 18:1, we see that we are to always pray. Also in 1 Thessalonians 5:16, we are to pray without ceasing. And that's what Hannah did, even in the midst of everything that she was going through, even in the midst of everything that she was experiencing and had experienced, she continued to pray. She did not stop praying. She did not stop praying. And so as I bring this to a close, I just want to say, irregardless, again, of whatever position that you find yourself in life, wherever position you find yourself in life, be persistent in prayer. Be persistent in prayer. There are rewards for you being consistent in prayer, because Hebrews 11:6 tells us that God rewards those that diligently seek him. And that's what Hannah did. She continually sought God. She continually went after God. She continually poured out her heart to God. She continued to be faithful to God, even in the midst of everything that she was experiencing. I mean, that is what that's what I want to challenge you with tonight as I close and turn it back over to Pastor West. Just again, whatever you find yourself in, keep praying. God answers prayer, as we see in 1 Samuel. He answered her prayer, and he rewarded her for continuously seeking his faith. He rewarded her for her faithfulness towards him. And again, thank you for this chance and this opportunity. A little sketchy. I got a little nervous here tonight, but I pray that above the nervousness that you get the point that they're saying in 1 Samuel. And if you have not had the opportunity to read 1 Samuel, it's very short. It's a very short story, but again, it's a powerful story. If you really sit down and think about it, about the rewards of being persistent in prayer. And that is it on my half. And I thank you again for just taking that time and the opportunity to hear this short word tonight. Pastor West.
Listen, I'll tell you what, that blessed me. That blessed my socks off. All right. Even though I know you said you were nervous
Yes.
and everything, and that you was like, just being able to get through it. But we, just like Hannah, the Lord, you found a way through him, and God had already worked it out. And if we don't learn anything else about Hannah, you said something that was critical. You said that her position was barren, or her posture was prayer. And so regardless of the situation that we find ourselves in, regardless of what's surrounding us in that season, she had to watch Peninnah being blessed. She had to face the fact that, this is my situation. I cannot do nothing about it because this is where God has me at right now. But knowing, even though he has me here right now, I cannot give up on the idea or the fact that God can do, as you said, you stated it, he can do what no other power can do. And so that's a word right there, is that, why do you cry? Don't weep, just knowing that Jesus is still alive and well, that God sits on the throne, that we have hope in him, and that we continue to trust in him. And so, excellent, as they say, you may have been nervous, but you did your homework. So I was taught a long time ago that if you do your homework, you ain't got nothing to be ashamed of. And so that should be motivation and encouragement for all of us. And this is why we call this segment Linking Up as a Lifestyle, because we're linking up in the word, and we're seeing that God still preserves those who continue to trust in him. And so we want to say to all of those out there, God bless you, God keep you, and may God continue to smile upon you. Be blessed.